Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to get Tears of the Kingdom up and running on either the Steam Deck or Windows-based handheld. For this video I'm going to be using the ROG Ally for the Windows handheld, but just know it should work on basically any handheld that's 6800U and up. The 6800U, you won't be getting this near amount this performance. It'll probably be closer to the Steam Deck if anything. But the 7640U and the 7840U, they should be solid performers for Tears of the Kingdom and Windows. So getting into the installation of the Yuzu, so it's pretty much the same on either SteamOS or on, not Android, my apologies, on Windows. So all you have to do is just go to the yuzu-emu.org and then it'll bring you to the Nintendo Switch emulator site. You can see their source code, you can see like their Patreon and all that stuff. So now if we go to download, it'll bring us to their download page here, and you can see their mainline build. So like 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, you can check all the previous versions here and everything too if you so desire. Sometimes new updates will break certain things in certain games, so sometimes rolling back to a different version could be advisable. So doing that, if you want to download for Linux, you just click this little guy here. Obviously I'm not going to be able to do anything with this on a in a Windows environment, obviously. So once you have that app image, all you'd have to do is just kind of open that up in SteamOS, but it's very straightforward on there. So doing it on Windows, you get a portable little install as well, so it comes in this zip package. So we'll open up the File Explorer there, bring that over. And now we can see that we have the Yuzu package here, so we just want to open this or extract it. So you don't need WinZip or 7-zip or WinRAR or anything like that. You can just use the built-in Windows one. So we just extract the files to here. Preferably you put it somewhere where you're going to have your folder and your emulators with your other ROMs and things like that. So for the purpose of this, we could just go to data. So this is my spare hard drive. So here we would make a new folder, call it emulators. If I could spell it right, you know what, I'm going to leave it like that just to annoy people. Emulators. So if we go to our emulators, we can bring in our Yuzu now. So if we go over to Yuzu, it's all extracted here nicely. Cut that, bring that over, and paste. There we go. Now as our Yuzu is built into here, and it's just a portable little launcher. All you have to do is just click Yuzu right there, and that's it. It's going to come up with this error message, blah, blah, blah. Click the more info that is up there, and then run anyway. And then I'll show you how to get everything set up with the keys and the firmware and everything as well. Okay, so you'll see on first boot here that we'll get deviation components missing, so it'll say encryption keys are missing and blah, 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 blah. So there's the Yuzu Quick Start Guide that you can click. It's a hyperlink and you can follow that. Or you just hit OK. Do you want to improve and give them your share your usage data? No, screw them. So we can go to File, and then what we have to do is hit Open Yuzu Folder, and then this will bring us to where our Yuzu folder is located. So to put your keys, this is just where your keys go. It's pretty straightforward. So finding the keys, it's pretty straightforward. Just go on Google, Nintendo Switch emulator firmware keys. It's like the first 1 and 2 links on Google. I'm not going to show it because that's kind of pushing the line, but this is where you put the keys. I can't make it any more obvious than that, honestly. Just use your Google, use your Noodle, and you'll be good. So now once you have your keys in, then you got to get your firmware and everything in. So you go to NAND, System, Contents, Registered, and we place them all in here. And I'll show you footage on the ROG Ally for what it looks like on that. Okay, so once we're kind of into Yuzu and everything, and you got your keys and all that set up, again, I'll show you my folder here. So open Yuzu folder. Going into keys, this is what your firmware keys are going to look like. Prod keys, title keys, whatever. And then going back into Yuzu, and then going into NAND, System, Contents, Registered. That's where you dump your firmware and everything. So those are the 2 folders that you need. So moving beyond that, to add a game directory into your Yuzu, all you have to do is just hit Add Game Directory. Funny that. And you can see here that I have a ROMs folder set up. So if I go into my C drive, we can see if I scroll down here, go down to ROMs, and then, yep, select folder, and then boom, we already have the 2 Tears of the Kingdom games in there already. I have the NSP and the XCI file type variant just because sometimes I find XCI works a bit better sometimes with Ryujinx or something like that, but I find that doing the NSP has gotten me the best kind of results across the board on YUZU, and YUZU definitely is the way to go for Tears of the Kingdom, I would say, especially on handheld. So now moving beyond all that, what we can do here is you can see that I've got a custom lazy pack mod here. So what you can do is go into your, I'm going to leave the links below on how to download all these, like where the mod links and everything are, but it's called Holographic Wings. It's on GitHub. Okay, so once you have this mods collection downloaded, again, I'll leave the link in the description. Go into mods where it extracts, go to lazy pack, and then there is a Linux and a Windows lazy pack generator, but for the purpose of this, we'll just use the Windows one, but the Linux one is like basically the same, but they don't guarantee support for it fully, so they only really recommend it on the Windows, but it still works on Linux. But I'll show you on SteamOS how to put your games in manual and everything as well. So for the lazy pack generator on Windows, all we have to do is just change our resolution accordingly. We're doing 1920 by 1080, and then we're going to do 60 FPS. I honestly wouldn't really recommend too much above 60 FPS, as it seems to not really be the greatest, honestly. And then for the black screen fix of when you're changing your weapons and stuff, there is a bug that'll go black, like the whole screen will go black except for your weapon wheel. So to change that, you can either have the black screen fix or not, and then you can change it to Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo UI. We're going to use Xbox because we're on the ROG Ally. Then you hit generate, lazy pack successfully generated, and then it'll automatically place it into your YUZU folder for your mods and everything. If it doesn't find it, here is the folder layout here, YUZU, sorry, your users, not YUZU, your name, app data, roaming, YUZU. Now, what's nice about this lazy pack is this truly is lazy, because it sets up the game settings and everything. So I'll show you in properties here, just in case you don't want to use the lazy pack and you just want to know the best settings. So CPU set to auto, graphics you set here, set to default by all that there. Advanced graphics is where you change everything. So normal, anisotropic filtering, it changed it to 16 times. Uncompressed, so ASTC recompression quality. We'll talk about this for a second here. So basically it says in their guide there that if you have like 4 GB or less of VRAM, to use BC medium quality texture. If you have like 2 GB or so, then use BC1 or low quality. I did test all of these as well as running it on the Steam Deck, and it did actually perform negatively compared to leaving it uncompressed or best quality. So leave that as best quality. Force async presentation off, force max clocks off, enable reactive flushing on, use async shader building hack turn off, use fast GPU time hack. So there was a day where you weren't supposed to use this with the dynamic FPS mods and everything, but they've since fixed whatever was interfering, and they now suggest that it is okay to use it with fast GPU time. So we'll leave that on because that's what it sets to. Vulkan pipeline cache, we use that. That's your shader caching and everything. Sync to frame rate of video playback. The lazy pack sets this to on, but they actually recommend it to be off, like in their big breakdown of settings on those mod. You can see the big breakdown of settings in the mods on GitHub and everything, so they actually recommend to turn that off, so we'll just run with that off. Now, that's all you have to do for setting up your YUZU settings for that. Then all you have to do to set up your controller. So unfortunately, we are going to have to use Handheld Companion, and I'll show you like how to install that, but it's fairly straightforward. So to use Handheld Companion, we're using it for the motion control aspect and really nothing too much else, except for EPP control, but we'll get into that towards like the performance. So going into your controls, you go to your emulation configure controls, and then you select your input device. So it's the Xbox 360 controller, and you can see here that there's the little, this thing here, that square in the middle, that's your motion sensor, whatever. So if you go here, motion, shake, I have to shake my controller, so there we go. Now I have motion control on my controller. So you can see here that, yep, because we're using Handheld Companion, that's how we are getting our motion control data. And I'll show you how to set that up as well. So once you have Handheld Companion installed and everything, you go here to bring up your quick tools. So you right click on the quick tool icon menu. And then all we have to do is go into what I like to do, honestly. So If you want to have motion controls like active all the time, all the power to you, but I really don't. I only really want to use it for like Yuzu, and then selectively for like if I'm playing a first-person shooter or something. So I'll kind of go through Handheld Companion here real quickly. So the only things that we're really going to focus on is EPP, but you can change your TDP limit and control it here. Auto TDP will try to base your TDP on an FPS target. So if you target 30 FPS, it'll try to adjust the TDP accordingly and keep it within that. That can introduce some like frame time stuttering or uneven frame pacing sometimes, but it is getting better kind of with every update, I would say. So just keep your eye on that, but we're not going to use that for Yuzu, honestly. It's going to do more harm than good. Maximum CPU count, that does not seem to honestly be working with this for the ROG Ally, so we're just not going to bother using that because I didn't see any performance difference and I didn't see any actual indication that we were parking any cores. Maximum GPU clock, you'll see that I did test with this of doing a 700 megahertz clock lock, and I did that on Steam Deck as well, but we'll get that into the performance. Honestly, long story short, it doesn't really do anything on the ROG Ally, but it does help on the Steam Deck. So now getting into our motion controls, the motion controls are turned on, so we want the output device of what kind of style we want it to be. So just leave it at right stick, and then style of input, I prefer player space, so that's like as if you're controlling a first or third person camera, so that's what I'll use for that one. And then honestly, motion activation, this is where you can either have it enabled all the time or you can have it disabled but then turn on with buttons. Thankfully they do register now your like your back buttons and everything. So what I do is I just set one of my back buttons to use it to turn it on, but it will work in Yuzu as well regardless. And then just really quickly about the energy performance preference, this is how it dictates like how much power it's sending to like CPU and GPU, the distribution policy. So typically I think it's around like 20 or 30% or something like that, but if you turn it on and then turn EPP to 0, that means it's sending all the power pretty much, or distributing the majority of the power to the CPU as opposed to the GPU. It's more CPU biased as it is opposed to GPU. So I did do testing with EPP as well, so we can see in the performance section when we get into that what it'll look like there. Then if we go into our properties for the game one more time, we can see our custom lazy pack is all ready to go there, so we are now safe to launch. What you'll have to do typically is launch it in gamepad mode if you want to launch just straight through Yuzu, or if you would like to create your own custom desktop launcher icon, you can download something called Shortcutes. So we'll get over to Shortcutes by going into our downloads because I already have that. Again, I'll leave that linked below in the comments below. And then, yeah, so all you have to do for Shortcutes, like it's super short, super easy. Once into Shortcutes, you just want to give your shortcut a name, and you select your emulator at the top. So you select, okay, CMU, whatever. All the emulators there, so we can see that, okay, Yuzu we want. Shortcut name, Tears of Nintendo. Got an icon or an image here if you want, so I already had one pre-downloaded, so you just double tap on the icon. Emulator directory, this is where you gotta go and manually find your emulator and where it's stored at, so that's why I keep it in my C drive with my emulators, and then all you have to do is just go in there and then select your yuzu.exe emulator, and then your game file directory, all you have to do for that is same thing, just go to your ROMs folder, so that's why I keep my ROMs all separated, and then you just hit open there. Which one you have to select which one you want, so we're doing my NSP one, so then there you go, and create Shortcut. And you can execute it if you want right after. We're not going to. We're just going to go and verify that it did work. So you can see here that, yep, there's 3 now icons on my desktop for no reason, all launching Tears of the Kingdom. And then when you select one of those, it'll bring up a little splash screen, and you can add these directly into your Armory crate as well. Alright, then real quick for putting in your own mods into the SteamOS or your mods profile. So you can see on the left here, this is the mods file with all the UI fixes and everything. So we're going to want that Steam Deck mod UI fix. We have the folders full of cheats and everything as well. So there's like damage mods, god modes, faster weapon charges, diving, climbing, all sorts of like infinite glider, I think, and speeding up. You can get all sorts of stuff through here, so if you want some cheats or kind of game modifiers, then it's all there for you. And then same with our FPS mods here, so it'll tell you, okay, to use 20 FPS with static and use it with the dynamic mods. So if you just hold your mouse over, it'll tell you exactly which one to use it with. You can see the dynamic 60 FPS, it'll tell you to use it with dynamic version 1.5.4 or 1.5.5. The static ones, it'll tell you to use version 1.5.3. Then if you just want to get those mods, we can see that, so if you right click on your game and then hit open mod data location, this is the folder that will open up, and then it's just simple click, copy, and drag. Okay, so getting into the results here, I'm just going to go over the chart real quick. So yellow, red, green. So yellow is the old drivers, red is the 780M or 7840U drivers that I did do a video on previously, and then the green is the new drivers or the Starfield drivers, which I also did a video on as well over the weekend. So we can see here I did 4GB, 2GB, and auto for VRAM testing. There's really no need to go over 4GB for emulating Tears of the Kingdom at all, unless you're pushing like 4K or something ridiculous like that, but you wouldn't be doing that on the ROG Ally or the Steam Deck, definitely not the Steam Deck regardless. So we can see here that auto typically netted us the worst performance, and then 2GB we lost about 2 FPS across the board, with 4GB being the best for 30 watt plugged in. Now moving 30 watt battery, we can see that I actually did lose some performance here quite a bit. So we went from 34 to 28, and then 32 to 26. 31 to 24 for the old drivers. Now the new drivers, they did actually kind of go the opposite way, and we were getting better performance with auto, surprisingly enough, when auto was netting us the worst performance in both the 780 and the old drivers. Now going to 25 watt mains, we can see here mains is plugged in on the wall or on the outlet. So we can see here that we're back up to like our 34, 32, 29, and things looking pretty normal there. The 780M drivers this time, though, at 25 watt, they just kind of sustained around 31 FPS, 32 FPS. And then going to the new drivers, again, our auto did result in the better FPS averages. And if you're keeping an eye on the 1% lows, unfortunately, these are kind of the nature of the beast with emulating a big Nintendo Switch game on a handheld, especially a Windows handheld, because you'll see when we get into the Steam Deck that the 1% lows actually aren't that terrible compared to the ROG Ally, which is kind of surprising when you think about the power level. Now going to 25 watt battery, we can see here the 2GB actually gave us a bit more boost over 4GB and auto, but on the new drivers this time, again, the auto was kind of the better performer, both in terms of 1% lows and 0.1% lows. The 780M drivers, same thing for the 1% lows, were best on auto. We did get the highest FPS average though through doing 2GB on the old and 4GB on the 780M drivers. Now going to 20 watt mains, we can see here that we are at 33, 32, and 28 on the old, 30, 30, and 28 on the 780M, and then same thing with the new drivers. We can see that auto is getting us the best performance here for that subset of drivers. Now we can see here going to 20 watt on battery that we did lose more performance again. So you can see, like, honestly, like even above 20 watts, there's really no kind of point going, like, so 20 watts here, okay, 4GB on the old driver, 4GB on the new driver, 30, 33. Now going to 25 watt, we gained barely an FPS. So honestly, if you're in a power constrained situation, 20 watts would be the most that I would push it if you're going for like a handheld play. But I would probably keep it around the 18 to 19 watts just to get that little bit extra battery life out of the device there. So going 20 watt battery, we can see that auto this time actually did perform worse. And then going into 17 watt mains, 17 watt plugged in, we can see that we're still getting 30 FPS on the old drivers and near about 30 FPS when we're hitting the 4GB, and on auto again was doing our better performing. But we were getting better 1% and 0.1% lows across the board on the new drivers at 17 watts. Then we can see going 17 watts on the battery that auto this time shifted and did worse, and then 2GB and 4GB were performing the same. we can see here that it was actually matching the old drivers at 4 gigabytes. Now going into 15 watt plugged in, you can see here that yeah, you're only losing about 2 FPS over like 20 watts. So it becomes that fine kind of balance of, okay, do you want to like see, like you're at 17 watts, you're getting 30 FPS, 20 watt, you're getting 20 or 33 FPS. So it's, again, you're just gonna want to play that kind of fine balance. 17 to 18 watts is my sweet spot recommendation here, because you can see here 15 watts, like you are going to be close-ish to 30 FPS. But when you're on battery, which is when you would presumably be using the 15 watt mode to save battery life, performance is honestly kind of subpar. It's at like 24, 25 FPS averages. The 1% lows were actually pretty good. And then I will note that I had 2 crashes running auto. So you can see here at the very bottom of the screen, it was a 15.6 FPS average. That's because I put in a 0 there, because there was one did not finish round in there at all. And yeah, that was just kind of the nature of it. I had 2 crashes completely, another one on auto on the old drivers, on the 780M drivers. You can see here in the middle, that 13.3 again. So, honestly, with that, I can't recommend using auto just because of the crashes. I never experienced any crashes with 4 gigabyte or 2 gigabyte. It was only exclusively with the auto modes. Now, finally going on to Steam Deck, we can see here that honestly, for like being the Steam Deck, being the older APU, it's more of a power sipper chip than a brute force kind of whatever chip. But you can see here, getting into the Steam Deck performance, I wasn't able to get overclocking working this time, because the last update, it's messed up everything. Even though I've done all the tricks and whatever to get it working, even following my own videos to get it working, it just won't take it this time. So I suspect there has to be an update to Smokeless or the Decky Loader or something, or Smoky Deck. So we'll have to wait and see. I'll keep you guys updated though on overclocking possibilities for the Steam Deck. So yeah, we can see here that doing 4 gigabyte and then 4 gigabyte with a 700 megahertz GPU lock, we can see that we actually did get better 1% lows and 0.1% lows with the 700 megahertz GPU lock. And then same thing going into 1 gigabyte. The FPS averages were nearly about the same, but the 1% and 0.1% lows were significantly better using that 700 megahertz lock. And then going down to the 13 watt, honestly, we didn't really see too much of a performance difference. Like if I just flip back and forth from here, you would just say, oh yeah, it's probably the same charter with a margin of error. So honestly, with the Steam Deck, you are able to actually run it lower than 15 watts and get pretty well near the same performance that you would be getting at 15 watts. But that's not to say you'll be getting an enjoyable 30 plus FPS experience, not like on the Ally. Alright, and then just to kind of wrap things up here, I'm just kind of screwing around with the Zonai, whatever the heck it's called. And I'm probably gonna, oh no, there we go. Okay, we're good. So anyway, so yeah, I'm just gonna use this opportunity to talk a little bit about performance and just kind of playing the game generally. So yeah, this is me going in a completely random direction. Barely any shaders cached because I deleted my shaders when I started doing the fresh new runs and everything. So I've only really built up shaders just in that little area. So I've not really seen too much. So you'll see other people with gameplay like doing things like this, and you can see that, oh yeah, they've got 30 FPS. And, you know, that's not out of the realm of possibility. But the longer that you've been playing, the more that you build up the shaders, that's when you're going to get the better kind of gameplay, smoother experience. You're still going to get the shader compilation stutters, don't get me wrong. This isn't going to be a perfect, solid 30 FPS. You're going to get interior scenes like in the puzzle scenarios and like inside the castles and dungeons and whatever. You will get better performance in there, obviously. You'll get 40 plus FPS in those areas. But when you're out in the open world, in the main open world, like the second layer of the open world or whatever you want to call it, this is kind of like the experience that you can sort of expect just doing stuff like this. But if we jump down and go to here, I don't even know where I am. I'll be honest, I've not really beaten this game at all. But we can see, like, yeah, so just gliding down, like, we're now hitting the 30 FPS there, like over 30 FPS, because we're not blasting through the friggin' zone, generating all sorts of new shaders and whatever. So we can see here that, yeah, like, it's raining, it's kind of a gloomier scene, so the rain effect's going on, but we're still getting pretty decent experience FPS wise right now. We're just at 25 watt. Honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if you get this type of experience at 20 watts dead on, because like we showed in the performance charts there, that yeah, like the trade-off from going above like kind of 18 watts, it's just really not worth it if you're looking for a handheld experience. So the most I would go would be 20 watts on a handheld play, but honestly I would stick around that 17 to 18 watts on the ROG Ally. Let me know in the comments though how your guys' performance has been docked and undocked or plugged in on the battery, whatever you want to call it. Am I the only one that's having issues like this where I'm getting worse experience on battery? I did do a sanity check, and I did check like Cyberpunk benchmarks and Forza benchmarks, and I do appear to be getting the same performance plugged and unplugged in those titles. So I don't know if there's something specific to Yuzu itself. I did go through and change manually the power profiles, and I downloaded a manual power profile as well, and that didn't seem to do the trick either. It's still operating the same. I honestly don't know why. As soon as I unplug the device, it just tanks the performance. But when we're plugged in, like, we're getting pretty solid FPS like this. Like, we're running around getting 30 plus FPS, and it's fairly smooth right now. Like, now that we're kind of slowing things down, more shaders have had time to compile and build up in the background. Yeah, like, we're getting pretty decent FPS now. If I knew kind of where I was, or if I had a horse, I would take you on a bit of a tour and go elsewhere, but this is kind of the best that we're left with. So at this point, I'm probably just rambling on, so we'll just let Zelda float down his little lazy river here. Well, I give a huge shout out to our channel members. So as always, a huge shout out to Darkstar, Amoa, Rico1217, my apologies, Roy Watney, or Roy Wayne, I believe, Joey VR, and then a recent member, Root Access. So thank you again, everyone, for all of you who have subscribed and like become channel members. I really do appreciate it. Everyone else that just watches or takes the time to watch or interact, like comment, like, thumbs up, thumbs down, do whatever you do, share it, don't share it. I appreciate all of it. Whether you do anything or nothing, it doesn't matter to me. I appreciate it all anyway. So as always, I'll wrap this one up. If you have any questions, concerns about my testing methodologies, or if you have any questions about how to get things kind of up and running, settings wise or whatever, feel free to hit me up in the comments. I'll be happy to help. I am in the ROG, the unofficial ROG Ally Discord as well. I'm not like an official capacity member or anything like that. I'm just a regular member, but you can find me in there as well. Beyond that though, I hope everyone has a great day.